This is the history of Creve Coeur. First one was a thrash machine they were thrashing wheat, and we don't know exactly where this was, but we came up with the picture, so it's the whole family out there working at doing a little thrashing. There's the other side of the operation, showing them the straw coming out and the wheat going in the bin. So Creve Coeur was a farm community way back when. This was one of the old homes, John Hetzel home, which is located on the south side of Olive, right at Mason Road. So it's no longer there now. This was one of our first gas stations. It was a Zephyr gas station located out just east of Mason Road on Olive. We had several gas stations back in those days, but they were just kind of little dumpy places, but they served the purpose. Next to the gas station was the Forest Park Lumber Company, which was run by the Wenneman family, and it was on the railroad track. The railroad track ran close to there, and it was quite an operation they had there. They were the only lumber yard west of Olive, so they did a lot of business. Well, this is a good one. This was the Last Chance Saloon. It was located just west of Emerson, and it was the last place you could get anything to drink before you got all the way out to Chesterfield. Kind of very interesting. So a lot of people stopped there to get one to go. This was the first Essen hardware store that we had. It was on the south side of Olive, just west of Dallas. And not only was a hardware store, but on the right side was a funeral home, Bauman Funeral Home. And then in the lower picture was our first volunteer fire department that we had. Creve Coeur was very active in the fire districts or fire departments, and they'd sound the alarm, and all the business people would come running out of the stores and go jump on the truck and go fight the fire. That went on for many years. This was Deerberg's first and second store. The first store was the two-story building when they first started, and then the one-story building that says Deerberg's on the front was their second store that was built in 1929. And the building on the far left, Creve Coeur Farmers Bank, was the first one they had. This was Stratman's grocery store. It was located between Lindbergh and Morrison Road on the north side of the street. And it didn't last too long. It stayed there for a while, but it finally turned into a commission house. But you can see how far back this was. They didn't have any cars. They were all coming by horse and buggy. This is the Creve Coeur golf course. It was an 18-hole course at one time, and it was a farm that was turned into a golf course, and they used the old buildings from the farm to be the clubhouse and operate the golf course from. This is the front side where you'd come in, and it's right where Craig Road is now, Craig and Olive. And it was one of the first golf courses in the West County. It started in 1924. This was the home of the farm home of Hackmans, who owned the farm originally, and this was the home that was right up in front of the clubhouse. It stayed there for a number of years after the golf course was running, because the golf pro lived in the house. And this is a spot, if you were at McDonald Hamburger's present location, looking east. In the background you can see the buildings. That was the golf course. This was on the north side, is where McDonald's is, and that's the south side of Olive, heading up to Craig Road. This is a very interesting place. The Budweiser sign was the 19th hole for the golf course. It was a tavern. Next to it was Milbrat, and later on Milbrat built the new building, and the Creve Coeur City Hall was where Milbrat was. That was the first city hall of Creve Coeur, right next to the tavern. Made it nice and convenient. This was the Hackmans when they sold the golf course, while they kept some property on Olive. This was just west of Mosley Road, where HBE is now. And that was the house on the right was actually where my wife was born and raised, Clarence Hackman home. And the one on the left was the Herman Hackman, which was the owner of the golf course, the grandpa. So they stayed until HPE came on the south side of Olive Boulevard, just west of Mosley. Rossi's Dining and Lounge, that was at Spady and Olive on the southeast corner, where Schnucks is now. There was a Shell station and a tavern there, so it later became a dining, and they had served food. They had good food. Very active place. This is Weber School, which was located where Bristol's is now, on the north side of Olive at Ballas and Olive. And it later became the American Legion home when the Weber School built a new one where City Hall is now. The American Legion kept it for a number of years, till around 1966, when they moved to the new location where they are presently on Rutabank East. Well, this is a great picture. This is the truck that I learned to drive on, believe it or not. Those are solid tires on there. They carried so much weight in the back of the truck that they had to use solid tires so they wouldn't go. Well, there was my dad and me, and I think I was about 10 years old. We didn't have to have a driver's license in those days. We could drive with, if you could steer the car and make it run, you could drive it. So this was one of the baseball teams that Creve Coeur was famous for. 1939, they were probably a championship team. We had a lot of ball players here, and they always had a good time. They always had a good team. This is the Tapmeyer House, which is now located in the Millennium Park. It was located on the north side of Olive at Ross Road, where the Dearborn Heritage place is right now. This was Meyers grocery store, which was the second store that we had in town. It was located just west of Emerson on the north side of the road. It was our second store that Creve Coeur had, grocery store. They were kind of famous for their meats. This was the old Creve Coeur Farmers Club, which later became the Creve Coeur Country Club, was right where Bristol's is, on the west side where First Bank is. And later it was remodeled and made into a modern building and moved to the back of the property where the pool was. And they had quite a nice building there because it was a big dance hall and we could seat 250 people. But this was the activity place for the farmers in the early years. This is the outside picture of Weber School, or the American Legion home after it was sold to the Legion. The school moved down to Ballas Road, where City Hall is presently. This was our famous prescription shop. It was Dorothy Fitch ran the drugstore. She put up a concrete block building before the city was incorporated, because you couldn't do that after the city was incorporated. And she ran the store all by herself. She had her car, and if you called in for a prescription, she'd fill it and then deliver it to you and put a sign on the door, be back in 15 minutes. She was really a great person. She did a fantastic job and took care of a lot of sick people in Creve Coeur. That was on the north side of Olive, right where U.S. Bank is now. So this was the second City Hall of Creve Coeur. That's one of our police cars sitting out there in front. I think we only had one police car at the time. And this was, it was a dry cleaner shop at first, and we went upstairs. And we stayed up there for a number of years till we built the new one that was on the north side of Olive, a little farther west of this. This was right at Old Ballas and Olive, on the north side of the street. Oh, this shot I like a lot. That cat's getting good food there. This gal had a good aim at that cat. We never did find out who it was, but we just know she was milking her cow and feeding her cat. We had a good camera back in those days, too, because showing that stream of milk going right into the cat's mouth. This was Grazer's hardware store and service station. They had one gas pump, and this was right at Grazer Road in Olive, where Walgreens, the new Walgreens store is. And then the building next to the big two-story building was a heating company. That was one of the boys ran a heating company. On the bottom side of the picture is a farm that was just west of there, right at Sheets Road, and they had a very nice truck farm, as they used to call it. Those are all vegetables, like probably cabbage and tomatoes and everything that you eat there. So that home was remodeled and is still there behind the old Walgreens store on the north side of the road. Here's one of our farmers that had 2 teams of mules. He was a pretty big farmer, Fred Grayler. He did a lot of farming and had 2 teams. They didn't have horses in those days. Most everybody used mules. I think they were a little bit better working animal than the horses were. So this was one of our horse and buggy days that they lived at the corner of Olive and Lundberg. They never did get a car. They were the Creve family, and they would haul their produce to the commission house every day. It shows, I don't know what year that truck is, but it shows how long they kept the horses going and the mules going. So they take their produce to the commission houses, and then they take it down to markets on 3rd Street to sell their produce. This was a new commission house that they built after the water company bought the property where he was, and so he had to build a new one. But they still had the team of mules there. So this was a Tom Thumb wedding at St. Paul's Church. I don't know why they did that, but I guess it was something for the little kids to do back in those days. But I happen to be in that picture. I'm the tall boy on the left side of the picture in the very back row. And that happens to be my wife, the tall girl on the right side of the picture with the dark hair. We had a great time at this wedding.